At the class reunion, I once again became the center of attention. My friends started asking me the usual question: when was I finally getting married? I simply smiled, pulled out a stack of invitations, and handed them out to everyone present. You guys really have great timing. The wedding is this weekend, so make sure you come and celebrate with me. Everyone immediately offered their congratulations, but their eyes collectively shifted to the man standing behind me. You two have been together for over 7 years now. It's about time you made it official. Rain suddenly slammed his glass down on the table with a loud thud, his voice filled with anger. Francis, do you think this whole marriage pressure thing is funny? An awkward silence fell over the room. I calmly walked up to him, unfolded an invitation, and placed it in front of him. Sorry, but I never said you were the groom. At every class reunion, one question was always guaranteed to come up: when would they finally get to attend my wedding with Rain? After all, in their eyes, a couple who had been together for almost 7 years without getting married was practically unheard of. So when I announced my wedding date at this year's gathering and started handing out invitations, the shock on everyone's faces was unmistakable. As I approached Rain, debating whether to give him one as well, he spoke up nonchalantly. When did I ever agree to marry you? Francis, what kind of stunt are you trying to pull here? Do you really think this is funny? The room fell silent. His voice, filled with anger, was the only sound echoing in the private lounge. Let me make this clear right now: I am not getting married. The more you push, the more you disgust me. If you have this much time for games, why not just wait another couple of years? Sorry, but you're overthinking things. I met Rain's gaze, my expression perfectly calm, and slowly unfolded the invitation in my hands. Look carefully. The groom isn't you. The moment I said that, everyone immediately opened their invitations, exchanging confused glances and whispering among themselves. What? The groom isn't Rain? Todd. That name sounds familiar. She has to be joking, right? After all these years, how could she just move on like that? Rain snatched an invitation, and after confirming the name, crumpled it into a ball and threw it at me in fury. What the hell is this? Some kind of performance? Sensing the rising tension, a couple of classmates quickly stepped in to mediate. Come on, what's going on with you two? Why are you always at odds? Francis, if you're just throwing a tantrum, this really isn't the place. This could seriously hurt your relationship with Rain. Rain, don't be like this. Everyone knows how good Francis has been to you over the years. She probably just wants to settle down, to have a home with you. Rain shook off their hands, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Francis, this was your plan all along, wasn't it? A public stunt to guilt-trip me, to humiliate me in front of everyone so I'd be forced to give in? You're just as manipulative as ever. Rain. I cut him off coldly. If I remember correctly, we broke up a long time ago. Have you forgotten? He froze, his face instantly turning pale, as if the weight of my words had just hit him. Half a year ago, I was the one who had officially ended things. Some of his close friends had even caught wind of it. That night, Rain had taken another woman to a friend's birthday party. Unfortunately for him, I happened to witness it. I had been there on business, entertaining clients, when one of them casually pointed behind me. Hey, isn't that your boyfriend? I turned around in time to see Rain, his arm wrapped around a stranger, the two of them laughing as they entered a private booth. That morning, he had complained about my work dinner, yet by the afternoon, he was out here, blatantly flaunting his infidelity. Suppressing my fury, I forced a smile. You must be mistaken. That's not my boyfriend. He went back to his hometown recently. Excuse me, I need to use the restroom. I wished with all my heart that it wasn't him. But as I stood outside that booth, Rain's voice came through loud and clear. You're pretty bold. Not afraid Francis will find out and throw a fit? Why bring up that buzzkill? Rain let out a mocking laugh. Even if she finds out, what can she do? You guys are so old-fashioned. What's wrong with having a little fun on the side? You've been together for almost 8 years. Aren't you worried she might actually leave you? Relax. She won't. She's so boring. Who else would even want her? Just the other day, she brought up marriage again, and I shot her down right away. So you're just going to string her along forever? You're really never going to marry her? Rain took a sip of his drink and smirked. Marriage? Don't be ridiculous. I'm still young. Sticking to just one woman for the rest of my life? That would be a complete waste. Honestly, that's kind of messed up. Rain scoffed and pulled the woman in his arms closer, pressing a kiss to her lips. Baby, you didn't hear any of that, alright? Let's have some fun tonight. Watching that scene unfold, I felt like I was suffocating, like an invisible hand was squeezing my throat, leaving me speechless. I had stood by Rain from high school to college, through every hardship, through every struggle. Now, we had both established our careers. I had thought we were finally ready to build a home together. But in reality, he had simply been keeping me around while enjoying his freedom. I pushed open the booth door, meeting his panicked gaze head-on. Rain, you got what you wanted. We're over. And just so we're clear, I'm the one dumping you. As I walked away, I could still hear the frantic conversation behind me. You're screwed. You better explain yourself. Rain gritted his teeth. Ignore her. I bet she'll come crawling back, begging for forgiveness. That night, I moved out of our shared apartment and cut off all contact with him. He never reached out to me. The only times I heard from him were when his drunk friends mistakenly called me, but I never answered. This class reunion was our first encounter since the breakup. Seeing everyone's shock, I repeated myself. Rain and I are completely over. I don't want my fiancé to misunderstand. The past is in the past, so let's not bring it up anymore. Rain stared at me, dazed, as if he couldn't process the reality in front of him. You're kidding, right? Enough with the jokes. You know whether or not I'm joking. My tone was indifferent. His chest rose and fell sharply with his ragged breathing. It took him a long time to force out his next words. Enough with this act. Rain always thought he was the smartest person in the room. He was convinced I was just trying to provoke him. I had no interest in dragging this out any longer. Just as I was contemplating an exit strategy, my phone rang. Seeing the caller ID, I couldn't help but smile. Are you off work? Yeah. Are you almost done? I can come pick you up. No need. I'm just wrapping up here. All right. See you soon. Just as I hung up the phone, Rain forcefully grabbed my hand. He snatched the phone from me, glaring at the call log with clenched teeth, his jaw tightening audibly. Then, he questioned me angrily, who is he? Where did you find this actor? Without hesitation, he attempted to call back. I swiftly took my phone back and said coldly, does this have anything to do with you? Mind your own business. My words were like a bucket of cold water, instantly extinguishing Rain's fury. His eyes reddened, lips pressed tightly together as he nodded repeatedly, seemingly trying to suppress his emotions. Remember what you said today. It's over between us. We're completely done. Don't expect me to take you back when you come crying in a few days. As if out of spite, he ignored the presence of our classmates and started making a phone call. His voice was dripping with affection. Baby, didn't you say you liked that limited edition Chanel bag? Let's go get it after dinner tonight. I frowned slightly, then briefly bid farewell to my classmates and the class president before turning to leave. The class president quickly followed, looking puzzled. What's going on? How did things get so bad between you two? I hesitated for a moment but decided it was necessary to clarify things to prevent any future misunderstandings. We're not just arguing. It's truly over. We broke up 6 months ago. The wedding invitation is real. You're welcome to attend. What? You're not joking? I nodded, confirming it. As I stepped out of the building, a car honked at me. The window rolled down slowly, revealing Todd's gentle smile. I quickly ran over. Didn't I say you didn't have to come? Why are you here? You weren't too far away, and I was worried you'd been drinking and wouldn't be able to drive. So, I figured I'd swing by and check on you, he said casually. Just then, our classmates started coming out as well. Seeing us together, they looked surprised. Suddenly, one of the girls clapped her hands as if she had just remembered something. Wait, I know him, Todd. He was the most handsome guy on campus back in college. Too bad he went abroad not long after. After she said that, several other classmates recognized Todd as well. I was slightly taken aback. So, Todd and I were classmates? Then why did I have no memory of him at all? Todd lowered his gaze slightly before stepping out of the car, greeting everyone warmly. Taking the opportunity, I introduced him to the group. This is my fiancé, Todd. So, you all know each other? Yeah. I can't believe you two ended up together. Even after all these years, the moment I saw Todd, I remembered him. A guy like him was rare at our school. I chuckled. Well, we should get going. Let's catch up properly at the wedding. Just as I got into the car, I saw Rain storming toward us, his face filled with rage. Todd glanced at him. Do you want to go talk to him? Forget it. Let's go, I answered decisively. As Todd started the car, Rain's figure grew smaller and blurrier in the rearview mirror. The last thing I saw was him throwing a furious punch in our direction. Todd remained completely unfazed, his composure unshaken. Instead, it was me who grew curious. Were we really classmates? Yeah. We even spoke a few times. He smiled lightly, a trace of self-mockery in his eyes. But I must have been too unremarkable back then. Seems like I didn't leave much of an impression on you. Don't say that, Just now, our classmates said Todd was the most handsome guy on campus. How could someone like that be unnoticeable? Thinking back, though, my college days were either spent with Rain or working part-time. I barely had any free time for myself or a normal student life, let alone remembering every classmate. Looking back, it felt like such a waste. I had devoted so much to Rain, only to end up with nothing. It was as if Todd could read my mind. He gently patted my hand and comforted me. I was just teasing you. What matters is that we met now. Everything happened at the right time. Speaking of how Todd and I met, I had to give credit to my enthusiastic boss. Back when I first broke up with Rain, it would have been impossible to say I wasn't affected at all. I tried not to let my emotions interfere with my work, but I had little enthusiasm for anything. When my boss found out, he immediately took it upon himself to find me a new match. He had always looked out for me, both as a mentor and a friend, so I didn't reject his good intentions. And the person he introduced to me was Todd. Todd was actually the lead partner on a project our company was working on. During our first meeting, we didn't talk much, but something about his calm, composed demeanor made me feel at ease. Just being around him was comforting. Todd also admitted he found me intriguing, so we started casually meeting up for meals outside of work. Over time, through both professional and personal interactions, I discovered that beneath Todd's seemingly aloof exterior was an incredibly gentle heart. What truly brought us closer was an incident at a business dinner. I had to keep drinking to secure a deal, which triggered my chronic stomach condition. Todd must have noticed something was wrong because, despite my protests, he carried me home, made hangover soup himself, and carefully fed me my medication. Watching his busy figure in the kitchen, my nose suddenly stung with emotion. This wasn't the first time my stomach had acted up. The worst episode even caused complications, leaving me with a high fever. Back then, I was too weak to get up, so I used all my strength to call Rain. But Rain was out having fun. Even after I bombarded him with calls, he only picked up once. The moment he heard I was sick, instead of showing concern, he lashed out at me over the phone. Is this really worth spamming me with calls? Will your stomach stop hurting if I come back? Will your fever magically go away? Stop being so dramatic. If you have the energy to call me, why not just order delivery for some medicine? That'd be way more useful. All I had wanted back then was for him to care. Todd turned around with the hangover soup in hand, meeting my gaze at just the right moment. He paused briefly, then smiled. What? Are you starting to think I'm pretty great? I laughed. Yeah, it's really nice having you here. A warm feeling spread through my chest. Can you be my boyfriend? Todd instantly flushed red, hurriedly turning his head as he clumsily stirred the soup. After a long pause, he finally mumbled, "Oh, of course." After getting together, we both wanted to get married soon but weren't in a rush to have kids. Thankfully, we were on the same page about that. With everything aligned, our families quickly met, got along well, and the wedding date was set in no time. Planning the wedding kept us busy, but since we worked in the same building, it was easy to discuss everything immediately. That day, I had to check on the progress of our new home's renovations. I wrapped up my work early and strolled to Todd's office. Through the glass, I saw him buried in paperwork, his sharp nose highlighted by the golden glow of the sunset. The entire scene was warm and harmonious. Todd looked up at me and shrugged helplessly. I still need to sort through these documents. You go ahead and bring the car around to the front of the company and wait for me. That way, we won't get stuck in rush hour traffic later. He was always so meticulous, thinking of every little detail. I had just parked the car and was leaning against the door, waiting for Todd, when Rain suddenly appeared out of nowhere, striding straight toward me. Before I could react, he blurted out, "Why haven't you been answering my calls these past few days?" I frowned. Are you serious? Didn't we already talk this through last time? Also, I've been busy planning my wedding, so do me a favor and stop bothering me, okay? You're still mad at me, aren't you? We've broken up, Rain. Which part of that do you not understand? His eyes were filled with resentment as he reached out to grab me, but I dodged him effortlessly. He took a deep breath, still keeping that arrogant tone of his. I know you. Deep down, you still want to marry me. You're just using this as some kind of reverse psychology. I'll let this slide. Move back in first, and as for marriage, I'll decide later, based on how you behave. Looking at him, I no longer felt anger, just a sense of absurdity and a tinge of sorrow. Our parents were neighbors, and we had practically grown up together. We had been in a relationship for over 7 years. But all these years, he had never once considered respecting me. Even now, his words sounded like a condescending act of charity. What did I even mean to him? A submissive, blindly devoted attachment to his life? Rain, I will never marry you. I already have a fiancé, you met him last time. You're lying. That guy was obviously just some actor you hired. You should know me well enough to understand that I would never joke about marriage just to spite someone. I shook my head. Forget it. There's nothing left for us to talk about. I turned to leave, but Rain suddenly grabbed my wrist, forcing himself on me in an attempt to kiss me. What do you mean, forget it? Francis, don't forget what you promised my mom. You belong to me, and only me, for the rest of your life. His words struck me like a bolt of lightning, freezing me in place. Rain and I had been childhood sweethearts, and our relationship was tangled with too many complicated emotions. It was never just about love, there was also gratitude toward his family. My mother passed away when I was young, and for as long as I could remember, it had always been just my father and me. But my father spent most of his time drunk. When he drank, his temper flared uncontrollably, and he would take his anger out on me with a wooden stick. One time, I was beaten to the point of barely clinging to life, and he still didn't stop, until Rain's mother happened to pass by, noticed something was wrong, and barged in to save me. She scolded my father for being an unfit parent and told me that if he ever drank again, I could come to her house anytime to seek refuge. Not long after, my father died in an accident. She took me in and treated me as her own child. From that moment on, I had a home. Perhaps because Rain's mother was so loving, and his father was in poor health, Rain had been spoiled from a young age. He resented me, believing I had stolen his parents' attention. But compared to my father's abuse, his petty hostility meant nothing. Over time, maybe because he got used to my presence, Rain stopped picking on me, and even started to accept me. I, too, got used to following him around every day. I lived in their home for 7 years, until Aunt Jo passed away in a car accident. On her deathbed, her biggest concern was Rain. She wanted me to take care of him and Uncle Joe so that she could leave in peace. Rain had never known hardship. After Aunt Jo passed, Uncle Joe's medical expenses became a heavy burden, but I never once complained. I truly wanted to build a home with Rain. But later. Francis, why are you so quiet? At some point, Todd had quietly appeared beside me, stepping between me and Rain. Todd, He gave me a gentle smile, his eyes full of reassurance. Then, he turned to Rain and asked, at that time, Frances was just a teenage girl, yet she took on the responsibility of supporting your entire family. She worked day and night, exhausting herself to the point of falling asleep on the way to work. All these years, she never uttered a single complaint, and yet, you call that breaking a promise? I stared at Todd in shock. I had no idea how he knew all of this. Do you even realize how severe Frances' stomach problems are? I've seen people work hard, but I've never seen anyone push themselves like she has, working to the point of ruining her own health. Can you even begin to comprehend how much effort she put in just so you and your father could live comfortably? Aren't you even the slightest bit ashamed for questioning her when, all this time, you were the one who owed her? Rain was at a loss for words, his face turning red with frustration. He pointed angrily at Todd. What does this have to do with you? She's my girlfriend. Taking care of me, and my dad is her duty. Who the hell are you to judge me? I stepped forward and wrapped my hand around Todd's arm. My voice was cold. I stopped being your girlfriend a long time ago. Don't try to stir up trouble in front of my fiancé. You too. Rain's glare could have burned holes through us. He clenched his teeth and asked, Frances, are you serious? I've always been serious. After a brief pause, I added, Rain, I'll continue covering your father's medical expenses. But you've already graduated. It's time you learned to live independently. I think if your mother were still here, she wouldn't want to see you wasting your life like this. The debt I owed Aunt Jo weighed heavily on me, so whenever Rain lashed out at me, I instinctively questioned whether I had done enough, never once thinking to defend myself. But just now, seeing Todd standing in front of me, protecting me, something finally clicked. Todd and I were about to get married. If I kept entangling myself with Rain, how could I possibly be fair to Todd? Rain stood frozen for a long time as if he was carefully processing my words. Suddenly, his eyes turned red. No, Frances, are you really cutting me off? Don't leave me. Tears welled up and fell down his cheeks as he murmured to himself, we used to be so good together. Yes, he enjoyed spending my money chasing after younger, prettier girls while also taking my sacrifices for granted. Of course, things had been great for him. Only I knew what it was like to stay up waiting for him, only to find him reeking of alcohol, covered in lipstick stains. From now on, don't come looking for me again. I glanced at the time and softly said to Todd, let's go. We had only taken a few steps when Rain suddenly shouted behind us. You think he's any better than me? He's been lying to you this whole time. Todd, do you dare tell Frances the real reason you transferred overseas back then? Or are you afraid she'll find out about the dirty secrets that got you kicked out of school? Todd suddenly stopped in his tracks, his body trembling slightly. I could feel his nervousness. Rain looked at Todd with a smirk. Looks like you never told Frances about this. Well, how about I do it for you? What do you think? You probably don't know this, but since the day Todd started school, he's been chasing after girls everywhere. He even stole someone else's girlfriend and got her pregnant. He couldn't take responsibility for her, and in the end, she jumped off a building and took her own life. Anyone who knows about this incident despises him. If his actions hadn't been so disgraceful that he was completely shunned by everyone, do you really think he would have willingly left everything behind and fled abroad? Stop talking nonsense. I stepped forward quickly, placing myself between them. This is slander, and you'll be held legally responsible for it. Whether it's slander or not, he knows the truth better than anyone. Rain shot Todd a sharp glare before turning to me, his tone softening. I know I used to be a bit of a troublemaker, but we've been together for so many years. You should know I'm not a bad person. But what about him? How much do you really know about him? From where I stand, he just got bored of his life overseas and came back looking for a wife, and you just happened to be convenient. Rain. My voice was steady as I cut him off. If you keep slandering my fiancé, I won't hesitate to have my lawyer send you a legal notice. Rain looked as if he had been struck. His mouth fell open, disbelief written all over his face. How can you still not understand? I gently pushed him aside and took Todd's hand, leading him away. Todd had looked pale ever since Rain started speaking. I suggested softly, maybe we should reschedule the house viewing. Let me take you home first? He shook his head. No need, let's see the house first. A long silence passed before he finally spoke. Frances, none of that was true. Todd's voice was low, tinged with uncertainty. I couldn't help but reach out and hold his hand gently. I believe you. Even though I hadn't known Todd for long, my instincts told me he was sincere and honest, there was nothing fake about him. Besides, I wasn't entirely unaware of the things Rain had mentioned. Back then, when I was working at the restaurant, there was a customer who came every single day. That was you, wasn't it? Todd turned to me, stunned. You, still remember? How could I forget? Rain or shine, he always sat in that same corner, quietly eating the same bowl of noodles. I even remembered one time when he was cornered by some guys, and I pretended to call the police to scare them off. Back then, he had to endure bullying from his classmates while also suffering through endless rumors. Life was incredibly difficult for him. But at the time, I was struggling just to get by myself. I had no energy to meddle in others' affairs. That single moment of help was all I could offer. From then on, he kept coming to the noodle shop every day, never speaking to me. At the time, he was sensitive and withdrawn, so different from the competent man he was now. If Todd hadn't accurately recalled details from my time working there, and if it weren't for what Rain said, I might never have connected the dots. Todd hesitated before saying, "You were the only person who didn't insult me, and even helped me. I didn't want to cause trouble for you and your boyfriend, so the only thing I could do was silently repay you in my own way." I couldn't help but smile. My salary was hourly, you know. Even if you ate more noodles, I wouldn't have earned a single extra cent. Huh? Todd lowered his head, a little frustrated. I thought you got a commission. I was joking. But at least your frequent visits proved that my noodles were pretty good. Before we knew it, we had arrived at our new home. We did a quick inspection. The renovations were exactly as expected. We were both very satisfied. Looking at the brand new open kitchen, I suggested, since neither of us has eaten yet, why don't I cook some noodles? You can see if my skills have improved or gotten worse. Sounds good. Todd bent down and pulled out 2 aprons. I'll be your kitchen assistant. Watching Todd focus intently on chopping vegetables, I couldn't resist being playful. I scooped up some flour with my hands and gently patted it onto his cheeks. Todd looked puzzled at first, then his eyes widened in realization. He grabbed a handful of flour and flung it at me in retaliation. Even though we were both wearing aprons, our clothes were soon covered in flour. During dinner, we finally talked about the past. That girl who jumped off the building, she was Todd's cousin. She had been assaulted by a gang, and when she became pregnant, she couldn't bear the shame and ended her life. Todd had tried to seek justice for her but was instead targeted by those thugs. They retaliated by spreading malicious rumors about him. Once we started talking, it was as if a floodgate had opened. We chatted like old friends, with no secrets between us. Todd ate with his cheeks puffed out, but whenever he was particularly interested in a topic, his eyes stayed fixed on me with unwavering focus. At that moment, I realized this simple, warm happiness was exactly what I had always longed for. Since my warning to Rain outside my office building, he hadn't caused any trouble for an entire week. Meanwhile, Todd and I were busy preparing for our wedding. The big day was getting closer and closer. To ensure my workload didn't pile up while I was on leave, I had been staying late every night to wrap up my projects. The next morning, I hurried out the door, only to have a figure suddenly block my path. Rain stood before me, looking haggard. His face was unshaven, his eyes red-rimmed. The arrogance he once carried was completely gone. Just as I was about to walk past him without a word, he spoke first. "You promised to help treat my dad, didn't you? His coughing has been getting worse at the hospital. He keeps asking to see you." I clenched my fists, then slowly relaxed them. Turning to him, I met his gaze with an unreadable expression. "I understand. You should go ahead first." You're not coming with me?" I didn't answer. I simply stepped around him and drove away. But in the end, I still found myself pulling up in front of the hospital. As soon as I entered the ward, the strong smell of disinfectant filled my nose. Rain's father looked even thinner than before. When he saw me, he forced a weak smile and struggled to sit up. I hurried forward and gently helped him. "I heard you're getting married soon?" "Yes." A flicker of disappointment crossed his eyes. "Rain has been crying for days, saying you've abandoned him. He begged me to convince you to take him back. You two were together for so many years. Is there really no chance of reconciliation?" I turned my face away, taking a deep breath. "Rain and I broke up a long time ago. I'm getting married soon." If my fiancé heard this, he would be hurt. Sigh. I understand. He patted my hand, his tone sincere. Over the years, you've been like a daughter to me. I once hoped you and Rain could become family, but it seems he just wasn't lucky enough. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize. I've seen everything you've done for us. If anyone should regret anything, it's that foolish son of mine. His mother passed away early, and you took care of him while working tirelessly to cover my medical expenses. Even if it was out of gratitude, you've already done more than enough. We are truly grateful to you. I held his hand in return, smiled faintly, and shook my head. Don't say that. This is what I should do. Planning a wedding is complicated. You should head back early. If there's a chance, I really hope to see you and your husband together next time. Putting everything else aside, you are, after all, like a daughter to me. I will. As soon as I stepped out of the hospital room, I caught sight of Rain pacing anxiously at the door. He hadn't had time to hide. His face looked a bit aggrieved, and his voice trembled slightly. Is there really no chance for us anymore? I no longer had anything to say to him. I simply gave a detached reminder, take care of yourself. Back at our new home, I saw Todd in the study, busy with something. A bright red sheet of paper was spread out on the desk, standing out vividly under the warm glow of the lamp. Last night, he had suggested that we exchange handwritten marriage vows. I hadn't expected him to act so quickly, he had already started writing. I quietly walked up behind him, wrapped my arms around his waist, and glanced at the ink and brushes on the table. Teasingly, I said, I never knew you had such beautiful handwriting. Of course. I've been practicing calligraphy since I was a kid. Todd's strokes were firm and deliberate, each line exuding focus and dedication. When he finally finished, I stared at the marriage certificate, momentarily lost in thought. Noticing my reaction, he seemed a bit surprised. Baby, what are you thinking about? Todd, you might not know this, but I actually saw your calligraphy a long time ago. I grew up in a broken home. My father was an alcoholic, which made me withdrawn and introverted. As a child, I often questioned the meaning of life. One time, after being beaten badly by my father, I wandered the streets aimlessly, like a lost soul. As I watched the endless stream of cars pass by, I wondered, if I were to be hit by one, would all my pain finally come to an end? Just then, a children's calligraphy exhibition by the roadside caught my attention. For some reason, I was drawn to it. The moment I stepped inside, my eyes were immediately captivated by a striking piece of calligraphy. I didn't know much about calligraphy, but those characters, sharp as a blade, felt as if they could cut through all the chains that bound me. Back then, a young Todd stood on the podium, using his tender yet resolute voice to share his understanding of poetry. Although I haven't faced great hardships in life, I know many people are struggling. I want to tell them that any difficulty can be overcome, and we must always hold on to hope. His words were the greatest comfort I had ever received. And I asked myself, what about me? Could my life, which seemed devoid of light, also see a glimmer of hope? Could I, too, become a warrior who braved the storms? Todd's words planted a seed in my heart, one that slowly took root and rekindled my desire to live. Unbeknownst to us, our fates had already intertwined long before we met. After hearing my story, Todd remained silent for a long time before pulling me into a tight embrace. Looks like I should thank my younger self for saying those words back then, otherwise, you might never have found hope again. I gently stroked his back, my eyes welling up with tears. Todd, thank you. I really mean it. Todd hesitated for a moment before speaking. By the way, a package arrived today. He handed me a box, the sender's name, Rain. A note on it read, a wedding gift. I pushed the box back to Todd. I'll leave it to you. Do whatever you want with it. Aren't you curious what's inside? There's nothing worth looking at. To me, every memory with Rain was filled with betrayal and lies. I wanted nothing to do with anything related to him. That evening, Rain called. He said he was leaving the country soon. I've moved on, and I truly wish you both happiness. But, could you come see me off before I go? Just as a friend, like a sibling. Rain, you have plenty of friends. You don't need me to be your sister. And I have no interest in turning my ex-boyfriend into my brother. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, followed by a quiet sigh. So, you still refuse to forgive me? You misunderstand. I let go of everything long ago, both love and hate. But the fact that you're asking this means you haven't truly moved on. After hanging up, I blocked his number. On our wedding day, our old classmates who had received invitations all came to celebrate. At the head of the banquet, I had reserved a special seat for my boss. He kept praising how his efforts in looking after me had paid off. Todd, holding a bouquet, walked toward me with a beaming smile. Looking at him, I answered the officiant's question loud and clear. I do. END.